I'm so embarrassed. I am mortified to tell you this. 3 steps that you need to take to not be that diet you give up on. This is how you use psychology to get the body of your freaking dreams, feel amazing, show up every single day as someone who chooses healthy by default. Don't avoid asking this one question the next time you start a new diet, which is, what makes your last attempt at weight loss your actual last attempt at weight loss? Like, what makes it different from every other one that you've made? Because if you're like my clients who have lost anywhere between their last stubborn 5 pounds to their first 60 pounds, it's likely that you've tried to lose weight many times before, but have probably been unsuccessful at keeping your results. And that's not because it's a you problem. That's one thing that you need to know. But maybe it was Weight Watchers a few years back, a stint of keto. Maybe you did the whole macros app thing for a couple of months, tracking every gram until it felt like it became a part-time job. Maybe you tried a juice cleanse once because a friend swore by it. And look, some of them probably worked very briefly, but then they stopped working. But once you dropped off, the weight comes back on, probably within about a year. Now, you're not alone. If you sit with that question for a while, you'll likely notice the answer you reach is something like, well, this time I'm more serious. This time I've got more support. Or this time I know more than I did before. Or this time I have a new plan. And all of that might be true, but it's not actually the thing that makes this attempt your last attempt. And I'm going to share with you what is necessary, is what needs to be in place to make this your last attempt. Because you've done a whole bunch of diets, so you know they're not working long term. But you probably desperately want a change. You crave that freedom to eat whatever you want and whenever you want, and the confidence to choose foods that support you and nourish you without a second thought. You don't want to be obsessing about whether you should eat another meal or thinking about that food that's in the cupboard and it feels like it's shouting at you. The self-image that backs you up to the bitter end, not that berates you for making small mistakes. I know because I have been there. Back in my 20s, I so desperately wanted a different body. Now, looking back, I believe that many would probably kill for the body that I had, but I hated that body. I hated how thick and chunky my legs looked. And I hated the fact that I could never look down without my belly protruding over my waistband. And the fact that I could only see just my toes was enough to hate my body and feel like I needed to lose weight all of the time. So I tried so many different ways of dieting. And each time I decided to start again, I was so convinced that this time it was different, that this time I'd do it. This time I would stick to the plan because I was serious this time. I was really serious this time. However, that day just never arrives because I didn't apply the principles that I'm going to share with you today. I didn't know the information that has helped my clients lose almost 60 pounds. I thought that dieting was all about exercising as much as you can, as hard and intense as you can, and eating less food. I thought I had it in the bag by eating just one head of broccoli with some sweet chili sauce at the start of a 17-hour shift. So the reason why I used to give up isn't rocket science, because we all know that a head of broccoli, 140 calories, isn't enough to sustain a freaking chicken, let alone an adult putting in a hard 17-hour shift. But the reason why they never worked for me was because I was always trying, or I was saying that I was on a diet the whole time. Now you might be thinking, but you're not lying. Like, what's wrong with saying that you're on a diet? What's wrong with saying that you're trying to lose weight? What's the problem with that? The problem is that is the problem. And it still probably is your problem right now, whether you've clocked it really or not. Because you still believe that you're on a diet. You still believe somewhere deep down that you'll probably regain. Maybe because regaining is what you've always done. Maybe because you're basing your results on every single diet that you've done before, which is what the human brain is designed to do, is designed to predict based on previous examples, previous experiences. And so you're assuming, you are telling yourself that you are trying and that your dieting statistically will regain. And that's just what happens because you're still telling everyone that you're on a diet, that you're watching your figure, or that you're just trying to be healthy at the minute. And that language is the exact same mentality that you were using on every single diet that you've done in the past, which is why this attempt right now could just as easily become another one of those numbers if you don't sit down and ask the question on how is this going to be different. And I'm going to give you the exact formula, the exact ways that it can be different. I'm so embarrassed. I am mortified to tell you this, but I've put in many of shifts working on the floor, working weddings and corporate events and birthdays. And we would have to walk around handing out canapés with one clear job. Get rid of the canapés as quickly as possible. They had a very short shelf life. We had to get them out and gone before they started creating a crust or setting. And you couldn't have food out for too long, right? The kitchen would send us out there and say, come back as quickly as you can, get rid of them as fast as you can. So I would make a beeline towards the groups of men because they're usually the hungriest. Then I would weave around the floor and find the women who were the most open to suggestion. Now, I want you to remember, back then, I couldn't give a shit about you, about your body or your goals, because back then, that wasn't relevant to me. That wasn't on my radar. I actually had no idea about health and wellness back then. I had no idea that what I was doing was actually perpetuating more of your problems, right? That wasn't relevant to me. It wasn't in my world. So I would find the women that were most open to suggestion to offload the canapes to. And guess what? It was the women who would say, no thanks, I'm watching my figure, were the ones who'd give in after a wink and me saying, don't worry, I won't tell anyone. I didn't care about their bodies and their goals. I just cared about offloading these 50 fucking canapes. It was always the women who were watching their figure or on a diet. And they were the ones that would give in almost right away. So if you're one to buckle under the slightest nudge, it's not that you've got no willpower or that you don't have discipline. You might not have as much of those as you want, but it's mainly because you are not creating a definitive yes or no environment in your brain as part of your identity. So this gray area is where your identity sits, which is where your decision-making shifts from aligned action to unaligned action, where you think that you're going to give up junk food and excessive food, but you're also still believing that you're the person that you used to be. You're the person who gives in. You're the person who lets people's priorities get in the way of yours. You're the one that will put others before yourself. You'll give in when it gets hard or it gets inconvenient. Maybe a work thing runs late and then the kids need feeding first. Your own plate gets sorted last or skipped altogether. And you tell yourself, that's just what being a mom or a wife or a daughter or an employee looks like. Everyone else's needs come first. Yours whenever there's something left over. And there's rarely something ever left over for you anyway. Rarely any time, any energy, any food left over for you. So this is just what happens when you try a new diet after new diet without making an identity shift alongside it. You'll end up being those women who I have offloaded those canapes to, not because there's something wrong with you, not because you're weak, but because you have not created an identity that is hard set on some very clear rules. And if that doesn't shift, right? Here's what's actually waiting for you. You will keep rinsing and repeating the same damn cycle. You'll pour money into the next program, the next diet, the next fad, the next subscription. You'll pour your energy into that plan. You will pour months of your time into tracking and restricting and starting again Monday, and you land back exactly where you started, sometimes a little further behind, right? Sometimes we regain more than we've lost. And the thing that you tell yourself to make sense of all of that is that you're just not like the women who find this easy, and that they're wired differently to you. And the thing that you tell yourself to make sense of all of this is that you're just not like those women who make this look really freaking easy, right? We are all wired differently, but we can rewire the way that our brain is programmed, the way that we have been conditioned. And that's the whole point of a brain, right? Is it rewires itself constantly based on what you repeat, what you reward yourself with, what you constantly think and say and hear, which means that the women who make this look automatic and easy, they're not running on different brains necessarily. They've just repeated a different set of decisions long enough and enough for it to stop requiring thought. So think 5 years from now, without this shift, without making this shift in the way that you approach your next diet, it's the same conversation that you would have with yourself in the mirror of your birthday. I've had many of conversations with women who think that 50 is going to be the big turning point because it's a big number, a big 50. But in reality, it ended up being just another year of living in the same brain and the same body, creating the same results, because nothing intrinsically changed but the age. It's still saying like, oh, maybe not this time. Next time you get an invite for a nice walking holiday with the girls. It's standing in front of the wardrobe, deciding what dresses are going to actually hide your body the most. Maybe I can't get away with a dress this time. Maybe I have to have baggy pants and a baggy shirt. I want to make sure that that isn't you next year, right? So we want to make sure that the next diet attempt that you make is the last damn diet attempt that you make. And before I give you the exact 3 steps that I want you to follow, I want you to know that there is research on this. And the research is very, very clear. There was research done with smokers. They gave 2 people an identity, right? One person was told to say that they are giving up smoking. The other person was told to say that they are not a smoker. One is giving up, one does not. Now, obviously, at the start, they both smoked. However, they were given 2 different identities. So they were going to face the same cravings. They were probably going to face the same social pressures. But one of them had an identity of trying, the other had an identity of giving up. And think back to my canapés and me handing out the canapés to the women who would give up, like the one who decided that he was trying to give up smoking, because there was so much ambiguity behind whether it was right or wrong, they gave up, right? They gave in. Because I'm giving up is a statement about a rule that you're currently under, and rules always get negotiated. Rules always get debunked and changed, right? Rules are there to be broken. And that invites negotiation, because can't implies there's a version of circumstances where you would be allowed. When you say, I can't have it, or I'm trying to give up, there is this limbo state where you could possibly give in. Whereas when you say, I don't, I'm not that person, I don't, that isn't a rule. That's a fact about who you are. I don't have brunette hair. I don't have brown eyes. Nobody is going to argue with that. As a waitress, if you said to me, I don't eat meat, I would run back and hand you the vegetarian canapés, right? Because I would see that I don't eat meat as something that is inarguable. And if you would say in that instance, I'm not hungry, right? I am not. That is a definitive sentence. That doesn't allow for leniency, right? So you wouldn't talk to a vegetarian and say, oh, go on, have some chicken, it's just one bite, because you already know it's not about willpower for them. It's an identity, it's a label, and a label doesn't really bend that much. So I want to give you the 3 steps that shifts this from the last attempt being another diet that didn't actually work to being the last attempt that you actually do make. So firstly, you are going to act as if. I want you to act as if you have already achieved your goals, right? Taking you back to the smokers, I want you to act as if you have given up or that you are not a smoker at all, right? You don't take yourself into the smoking area. You don't stare at someone's cigarette packets. You don't go to the shops to buy them. It sounds very simple. It might sound very stupidly obvious, but that is exactly what we're going to do. We're going to act as if. You're not going to change everything tomorrow. I just want you to make the next decision, the same decision that the version of you who has achieved her goals would make, right? So the next meal, the next glass of wine, the next moment someone offers you something, I want you to think about the woman who's already achieved your goals. This is the version of you that is not negotiating anymore. She knows point blank what is acceptable, what is not. You're going to ask yourself how this version of you achieved her goals would act in that moment. And this should take just a moment, and you're going to feel alien. It's going to feel like imposter syndrome, but that's okay because imposter syndrome doesn't actually exist because you are acting as someone that is not currently you. So you're going to feel like an imposter. And imposter syndrome is just simply a lack of experience in doing something, right? It's a lack of experience of being that version of you that exists in the future who has achieved her goals. But remember that every single moment that you take in the present is the reason why that future version of you has achieved her goals. She didn't achieve her goals by leapfrogging her way over to pure success. She had to say no 100 times over before it felt normal. So you have to make sure that you are taking action that is completely aligned with your future version of you, whether it feels weird or not. So I want you to act as if she has already achieved her goals. Ask yourself, how would this future version of me, or if you can't envision a future version of you who is already succeeding, think about me. Think about your idol or think about someone who you look up to and ask yourself, how would she or he act in this moment? What would they do? Would Bianca go to a drive-through on her way home from work because she was tired, or would she go home and put together something that didn't taste as good, but would help her get to her goals, would help her maintain her weight? Because you know exactly what it takes to get there, right? You know. And if you don't know, you will have some form of intuition, but you're not allowing that intuition to come through when you start to override it, when you allow ambiguity, when you allow opportunity, right? So think about how this future version of you or someone else or your idol would act in that moment. So you're going to act as if. That's step 1. Step 2, you're going to say as if, right? So you are going to claim this identity. So you're not saying I'm trying to diet, not I'm being good this week, but I don't eat like that anymore. You're going to say it as it is. Even the first time that you say it isn't going to feel true yet, and that's okay. That's okay because it becomes true because you said it and then had to catch up on your own sentence. Back in 2021, January the 1st, I made a New Year's resolution, which was the only resolution that I ended up sticking with, to go vegan. Now, in that moment that I made the resolution, I had no idea how I was going to give up the foods that I love. The foods that I loved were chocolate and eggs. I would have 2-3 eggs every day. I'd have chocolate every day. I was a massive sweet tooth back then. I still am a massive sweet tooth, but I knew that vegan chocolate tasted like garbage, and I knew that I couldn't replicate eggs. So I decided I was going to go vegan without knowing exactly what it was. So I was acting as if I would show up and I would say, okay, am I going to give in to regular chocolate or am I going to buy the vegan chocolate? So I would say, how would future version of me act? Okay, so future version of me would take the vegan chocolate even though it tastes like crap. Okay, so I would start acting. But the shift happened before I actually believed that I was vegan, because I wasn't. I was still taking unaligned action. I was still eating eggs and I was still having some form of dairy every now and then. But I kept saying, I am vegan. I am vegan. Now, it felt freaking weird because I wasn't showing up as vegan all of the time. I had so much deviating behavior that I wasn't actually fully vegan, but I kept telling myself, I am vegan. I would tell other people, I would go to restaurants and order and say to them, I am vegan. Can I have a vegan menu? And the reason why I kept doing this is because I knew that if eventually I kept telling myself that this is who I am, my actions would align. And it got to a point where I would go out and maybe buy something like eggs or chocolate, or I would start contemplating adding them to my meal plan. And there was a part of my brain that said, yeah, but you're vegan. This is not who you are anymore. So I created this cognitive dissonance between the goals and the version of me that I said that I wanted to be, or I said that I was, and the actions that I was taking. And so I created this separation intentionally so that taking action felt easy, and it did. It took a couple of weeks of me telling myself that I'm vegan for me to naturally and effortlessly want to take the actions of being vegan. Does that make sense? So the way that I actually changed my behavior and made the new aligned actions feel easy is because I started telling. I started essentially lying. I was lying to myself and lying to others to create this new identity. And so I stepped into that. And I did. I took action. I didn't wait. So step 3 is to don't wait. I don't want you to wait to feel aligned with that identity before you act like her. The alignment will turn up after the action is repeated, not before it. Because motivation is a drug. It feels incredibly strong on the Sunday night when you've got a fresh notebook or a fresh meal plan, a fresh calendar, the new plan is ready. And then it wears off exactly like any drug high does. And if the whole thing was built on riding that motivation wave, then you're stuck waiting for the next wave to hit, waiting for the next dose of this drug before you can move on to the next step again. And so that's why the January reset and the New Year's resolutions, that's why they always flop by February, because that high, that novelty wears off and there's nothing left underneath it to catch it. So we have to create the momentum in order to keep our results instead of relying on that motivation to carry us through. And that momentum is created by taking the action that you believe is aligned with your future self, saying like it is, right? So lying through your teeth about who you are and how you show up, because that will create easy action so you can do it right away without waiting. And a perfect example of this is my client, Michelle. She was a lifelong devotee to chips and soda. She'd consumed both to excess for every single day for years. And to the point that it wasn't even a decision that she'd make on a day-to-day basis, it was just automatic. And so while she dieted on and off for decades, she kept regaining more and more each time. And she would lose and regain more times than she could count. But Michelle knew what she needed to do. She didn't lack information. She followed the likes of Dr. Michael Greger and the Esselstyns and so on and so forth. She had all of the information at her fingertips, but she struggled to keep the results long term because there was this ambiguity. And it was the day that she stopped saying, I'm trying to cut down on soda and chips. And she started saying, I don't drink soda, and I don't eat chips. And I'm not kidding you, that one sentence, that one identity shift clicked, right? And that was it. She stopped holding on to this identity of someone who kind of is, kind of isn't. Something in her brain clicked into place. It was no longer ambiguous. She wasn't in the middle, in the limbo area. It was black or white, and that was her decision. And that didn't allow room for negotiation and any reckoning. So you can change who you are in a heartbeat, and it only takes a decision to change that. And that's what her story actually proves. And Michelle has not only gone on to lose almost 60 pounds now, but she hasn't touched chips or soda in at least 4 months. And they were things that she genuinely believed that she would never be able to give up. So it's never really about finding the right diet or what you need to eat. It's deciding exactly who you want to be and showing up before you believe that you are her. It's not fake it till you make it. It is deciding that you are no longer that version of you who keeps rinsing and repeating the same shitty results, experiencing the same life, the same low-lying confidence, the same worthiness, and the same level of enough. And it's deciding that you are going to be the version of you that you want to be before you're ready to take her on. You have to think of weight loss as these puzzle pieces, right? You can change your nutrition piece over and over. You can go plant-based or keto or whatever fucking trending this year, right? And might move the scale from time to time, but there's always a core identity. There's always a core identity of who you honestly believe that you are. And if you start to shift that, the actions that you take will follow suit. So you can change the plate without changing that piece, and you'll be back here again in 12 months' time with a new plan and a new same ending. But if you change the identity first, what is on your plate will naturally follow it. Your actions that you take, the people that you hang out with, your boundaries, what you say about yourself will follow suit, because it will get to a sticking point where it just feels ugly to keep continuing the actions that is not. This is human psychology. This is how the brain works. And this is how you use psychology to change your habits, to get the body of your freaking dreams to feel amazing, to show up every single day as someone who chooses healthy by default, to show up, to be able to play with your kids and have enough energy at the end of the day to put into things that serve you rather than things that don't serve you. And if you want to know exactly how I can help give you those pieces and put those in place, then I'm running a very special birthday deal. DM me the word birthday and I can walk you through the exact steps that Michelle took in order to change her identity to get the results that she has wanted for decades. If that sounds like something that you would like to walk through and see if it's for you, comment the word birthday and I will get in touch. And if you're watching this on YouTube, I will drop a link underneath this video where you can book a call with me. And on that call, just let me know the word birthday and I will give you all of the details of how you can work with me to shift that identity so that healthy becomes your default, to get out of your own way and to make the results stick so you're not rinsing and repeating and ending up in the same position year after year. I will share with you everything that actually works to keep the weight off for good. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope this was helpful. Make sure you give it a like, hit subscribe, and just drop some comments. Was this helpful for you? Do you see yourself in the examples that I have shared? And if you do, let's have a conversation, because if you see yourself in any of what I've talked about today, it's likely that I could help you unblock what's getting in your way. I look forward to seeing you in the next video.